The year is 180 AD, and Rome's beloved emperor, Marcus Aurelius, has just died. The Marcomannic Wars have ended, and a triumph for victory in the north has been declared. Many have lined the streets of Rome, awaiting the new emperor's arrival. Little did they know that the Pax Romana, the age of peace and prosperity for the empire, has just ended, and Rome's long decline has begun. Aurelius has been dubbed one of the 5 good emperors, being remembered as a just man who carefully guided the empire through both times of peace and war. He was the epitome of Plato's philosopher king, a man who did not let absolute power corrupt absolutely. His son and heir, however, lived in stark contrast to his father. Commodus, Rome's new emperor, would go down in history as one of the empire's worst. Many will recognize his name from the 2000 blockbuster film Gladiator, with Commodus being portrayed as a deranged, power-hungry tyrant. It may surprise you that Commodus was in many ways worse. His first act as emperor was to abandon his father's Germanic conquest despite his advisors' protest. He ignored nearly all of his imperial duties, instead spending most of his time training as a gladiator and tending to his harem of women. He would delegate tasks to skilled advisors, only to have them gruesomely murdered when a hint of paranoia or distrust would cross the young emperor's mind. Commodus continually squandered the empire's vast riches, spending time killing exotic animals and holding frequent lavish games in Rome. Roman historian Cassius Dio remarked, "This man, Commodus, was not naturally wicked, but, on the contrary, as guileless as any man that ever lived. His great simplicity, however, together with his cowardice, made him a slave of his companions, and it was through them that he at first, out of ignorance, missed the better life, and then was led on into lustful and cruel habits, which soon became second nature." A failed assassination plot in 182 by his sister Lucilla drove Commodus increasingly into insanity and paranoia. He thought himself to be the reincarnation of Hercules, spending more time LARPing as the mythic hero in the arena rather than tending to Rome's needs. After a fire ravaged Rome in 191, he renamed the city Colonia Lucia Annia Commodiana, or in English, Commodus's colony. Senators despised Commodus, and another assassination plot was hatched in 187, only to yet again fail. However, this didn't deter the conspirators, and in 192, yet another plot to kill Commodus was created. His mistress poisoned his food, making the emperor horribly sick, but not killing him. His reign of terror would finally be ended that same day when one of his gladiators, Narcissus, strangled him to death. The political chaos that followed Commodus's death would pale in comparison to anything during his reign. 193 would be known as the Year of the 5 Emperors, as men would seize power and quickly be usurped. First Pertinax, then Didius Julianus, Persinius Niger, Clodius Albinus, and finally Septimius Severus. Severus ruled from 193 to 211 and created a dynasty that brought a short break to the chaos. However, in the coming decades, Rome would descend into the crisis of the 3rd century, nearly ending the empire and leaving it weaker than ever. Reformers such as Aurelian, Diocletian, and Constantine attempted to revive Rome's strength, but it would be no match to disease, infighting, and barbarians constantly assaulting the ailing empire. The march of history was unbeaten. The western half of the empire fell in 476, bringing an end to Roman rule over its birthplace. Although not completely his fault, one could pin at least some of the blame for Rome's collapse on Commodus, as his ascension marked the end of the Pax Romana and the beginning of the decline. So what if things changed? What if Aurelius never made his son emperor? Who would be emperor instead? Could Rome have survived for longer? Salve amicis, this is Historia Invictus, and let's dive in. Out of all 5 good emperors, Marcus Aurelius was the only one to have a son and to name him his heir, with all others adopting and appointing a successor. This made Commodus the obvious choice, but other potential heirs had crossed Aurelius's mind, most notably his trusted general and advisor, Tiberius Claudius Pompeianus. Pompeianus was born in 125 to a minor noble family, but would quickly rise through the ranks to become a key figure during the reign of Aurelius. He served as governor of Pannonia Inferior during the early stages of the Marcomannic Wars, driving back the initial invaders until additional reinforcements could arrive. Pompeianus aided Aurelius and his co-emperor, Lucius Verus, in pushing the barbarians back over the Danube and into Germania, quickly becoming one of Aurelius's most trusted advisors. These ties would only be strengthened by Verus's untimely death in 169, as his widowed wife, Lucilla, who was also Aurelius's daughter, was married to Pompeianus. After this, Aurelius even offered Pompeianus the position of Caesar, which would make him heir to the throne. However, Pompeianus declined, and instead would serve as Aurelius's chief general for the duration of the Marcomannic Wars. Aurelius would ask Pompeianus to be his heir another 2 times, but he would yet again turn down the offers. Russell Crowe's character Maximus in Gladiator is loosely based on Pompeianus, as he too turns down the opportunity to be Aurelius's heir. After Aurelius's death, Pompeianus tried to advise Commodus to continue the conquest of the Marcomanni, but he would instead return to Rome. After Lucilla's 182 assassination plot would fail, she would be executed, along with other members of her family. Pompeianus would be spared, however, as he was not involved in the scheme. For the rest of Commodus's reign, he would live a quiet life in the Italian countryside, away from the world of Roman politics. However, after the Mad Emperor's death, at the hands of assassins in 192, Pompeianus would return to Rome and resume his seat in the Senate. He would even be offered the emperorship a 4th time by urban prefect Pertinax, who would himself become emperor after Pompeianus declined. It seems as though Pompeianus was the best candidate at the time to succeed Aurelius, being offered the throne a whopping 4 times. But when further analyzing the situation, a problem arises. Pompeianus was not related to Aurelius. Traditionally, Roman emperors would appoint a son or close relative as heir, with the other 5 good emperors also following this rule by adopting extended family as their own in order to secure the succession. At first glance, Pompeianus was not a part of Aurelius's clan, but one must remember that he had married Lucilla, thus making him a part of the Nerva-Antonine dynasty. This would give him the legitimacy needed to become emperor, allowing Pompeianus to take the throne without significant resistance from the Roman aristocracy or the army. If Commodus tried to usurp Pompeianus, he would be crushed, as he lacked any real military experience, and Pompeianus was a respected general who commanded the loyalty of Rome's vast legions. In this alternate timeline, Pompeianus accepts Aurelius's request and becomes imperator. Commodus would likely try to gather support to overthrow him, but as explained previously, this would be futile. Pompeianus' first challenge to tackle would be the question of the Marcomanni and whether or not to continue Rome's campaign in southern Germania. Given that he encouraged Commodus to do so in our own timeline, it is likely that Pompeianus would continue the conquest of the Marcomanni and would consolidate the occupied lands into new provinces. It is thought that Marcus Aurelius also held these same ambitions, and that if he had lived longer, he too would have consolidated these fresh conquests into Roman provincia, and possibly would have launched a further campaign to conquer the rest of Magna Germania. A great effort would then be made to Romanize these newly conquered lands, with Pompeianus sponsoring the construction of new cities and the infrastructure needed to support them. This southern conquest could very well have laid the groundwork for a further conquest of Magna Germania, doing what not even Augustus could by pushing the Roman border from the Rhine to the Elbe. As long as the eastern border with Parthia remained secure, Pompeianus could have leveraged the full might of Rome to finally subdue their Germanic tribes. This would have been made possible by the legions already stationed along the Limes Germanicus, those stationed in newly conquered Marcomannic lands, and Pompeianus's military prowess. If he had managed to conquer Magna Germania, a similar process to which happened in Marcomannia would have occurred. Infrastructure would be built to aid the flow of incoming Roman colonists into newly constructed cities that would be protected by legions garrisoning the new border along the Elbe. The conquest of Germania eliminates one of the main contributors to Rome's downfall, the Germanic tribes, likely extending the empire's time far past 476. By the 190s, Pompeianus would be aging, but still could have carried out further conquests, this time in the east, if Rome had the necessary resources after their Germanic campaign. Taking advantage of Parthian weakness, Pompeianus or his successor could have carried out a campaign in Mesopotamia, coinciding with Septimius Severus's 195 campaign that occurred in our own timeline. Historically, Rome had trouble holding Mesopotamia, and after the Germanic campaigns, maintaining Roman rule in the land between the rivers would be tough. However, in the late 2nd century, Parthia had begun to decline due to previously costly wars with Rome, the Antonine Plague, and dynastic issues, making it harder for the already struggling empire to hold on to its Mesopotamian lands. As long as enough legions could be stationed along the Parthian border, Rome could hold and consolidate these new conquests into a province. By the turn of the century, Pompeianus would be old and frail, passing on into Elysium. He would be remembered as a military emperor, a new Trajan who conquered peoples who previously bested Rome. Pompeianus' son, Lucius Aurelius Commodus Pompeianus, who in our own timeline was a senator, military tribune, and consul, likely would have succeeded his father as emperor. Little is known about him, but judging from what we do know, Lucius could have been a capable emperor just as his father could have. In this timeline, the Pax Romana extends well into the 3rd century, under the rule of Pompeianus' son, preventing the crisis of the 3rd century and the chaos that it caused. In this world, we might speak of the rule of the 7 good emperors instead of the 5. The removal of the threat of Germanic barbarians to the Roman heartlands due to Pompeianus' conquest, combined with this newfound stability, means that a united and strong Roman Empire may very well extend past 476 into the 500s and beyond. Roman civilization may even be preserved until today, similarly to what Chinese civilization did in the East. This changes the fabric of the world as we know it, and deserves its own video, hint hint, but that is for another time. Remember to like and subscribe if you want more historical content like this, as your support keeps this channel running. This is Historia Invictus, signing off. Vale!